guys, welcome back to The Bright Side. Macy here, The Bright Side Girl, and today we're going to be doing my HIKEATHON reading wrap up. In case you somehow missed it, HIKEATHON is my nature, fitness, survival themed readathon that we just wrapped up at the end of May. I had the absolute best time and I believe a lot of you did as well. I will link all of the vlogs if you missed any of them, because there are 7 in total for the entire 2 weeks, down below in the description and up in the cards if you want to go and check them out. I went to a bunch of trails, I read some awesome books. Overall just had a really great 2 weeks. So this is just going to be the sit down wrap up of everything I read for HIKEATHON, and is technically going to be part 2 of my May reading wrap up since HIKEATHON started halfway through May. I will have a part 1 of my reading wrap up coming up after this because I kind of wanted to get this out, where I read just a couple of books before we started the readathon, but this is going to be everything that I read for HIKEATHON. So we're just going to dive right in. Okay, so we had some reading challenges and prompts to follow. I believe I hit them all. I'll try to mention them here as I'm going through the books, and we're going to go in order of my least favorite to favorite reads. I enjoyed almost all of these books, even the ones that I gave like 3 stars to. I still enjoyed my reading time. They just didn't make like new favorite status, and so many of them had the like naturey survival hiking vibes that I wanted. So I'm really proud of my choices this year because this is the first time for HIKEATHON that I've liked so many of them, and I read so many as well. So I read 19 books in total, and then I DNF'd 1. Oh, and just a disclaimer, most of these I did on audio. I will share narrators down below as I'm introducing them. The ones I read physically, I will let you know, just so you're not like, oh my gosh, how'd she read 19 books? A lot of them were also very short, and a lot of them were graphic novels as well. So first we're going to start with the graphic novels I read. I didn't really feel like putting them in order of like favorite to least favorite like I did the other books, so we're just going to talk about that portion first. Just in case you're not into graphic novels, I will try to remember to link a timestamp to when I jump into the rest of the books down below. So I rented a bunch of graphic novels from the library. Something I like to do for the readathons is I will type in keywords into the search bar of the library and then hit graphic novel, and then all the graphic novels under that word will come up, which is very helpful for things like HIKEATHON and Mermaid Marathon. So some of these I had no idea what I was getting into when I searched for them, but I put words like camping, hiking, nature, stuff like that. So I got The Flower Garden from Renee Carilla. So this is actually a kid's book. Usually kids books don't pop up when I do that graphic novel selection, but I would definitely consider this more of just like a kid's book. However, it was very cute and full of garden fun, and I would definitely recommend picking this one up, especially if you have a little one. Then I picked up the Makers Comics Survive the Outdoors. So this is actually a graphic novel that is like a learning graphic novel. So it's designed to like teach kids like camping survival techniques. So it gets pretty detailed on here, like how to catch and clean a fish, how to like mend a wound out in nature and build a hut and everything, and it's told in like a cute little story. Kids going camping with their grandpa who don't really want to. So I enjoyed this. I thought it was fun. Apparently they have a bunch of them. They have like how to fix a car and draw a comic and build a robot and grow a garden, which I need to get the garden one. So I thought this was kind of cute and really good for like probably like 8 and up. Be something fun to kind of get your kids learning some things. So cute little series. Then I read Be Prepared by Vera Bruskel. But actually say this is like younger than middle grade. The main character is 9. So this has a very, very young feel to it. Our main character lives in New York. She's Russian. She doesn't fit in super well with her friends, and they kind of all go to camp in the summer, and she doesn't go to camp. And then one year she finds out that there is a Russian themed camp in Connecticut, and so she goes to that, and she's like excited to make a bunch of friends that are like her and stuff like that. And then of course camp is hard and she has to learn things about growing up. This is cute, but it was very young and kind of strange at parts. So I enjoyed it, but not a new favorite. Then I read The Sprite Gardener, and I really enjoyed this one. This is about sprites and them helping people grow gardens. I thought it was really cute. It's very short. I wasn't a huge fan of the art style. Like, it was cute and I liked it, but sometimes because the colors were all so similar, it was like almost too whimsical and I couldn't even tell what was happening at certain points just because it all kind of blended together at a couple places. But again, another cute springtime graphic novel. And then my favorite was Lumberjanes. This is the first book, Beware the Kitten Holy. Again, this is a camp setting, kind of like a Girl Scouts, but more intense, more lumberjane jack style, so they're like cutting wood and stuff like that. But this has a fantasy element, so then they stumble upon some magical things in the woods, and I think it will just get more adventurous from there. We follow 5 girls, and it was really, really fun. And this one I believe is YA, and I requested the other books because there's quite a few of them, and I really like this one. Okay, so now for the rest of the books. So I DNF'd All the Wind in the World by Samantha Mabry on audio. At this point I was halfway into HIKEATHON, and I was enjoying some of my reads so much, and I had had this one for a while, hadn't known a ton about it. I thought it was going to be a little bit more survival in the wilderness kind of vibe, but this is set kind of in a dystopian future where these kids work on these like agave farms, but it's like very poor conditions. They're paid badly and treated terribly, and then they wind up having to leave one of the farms to go somewhere else when an accident happens, and they're like in love, but they're trying to hide it because people take advantage of them if they know that they're in love. I didn't really enjoy the characters or the story that much. I found out halfway through that Samantha Mabry wrote A Fierce and Subtle Poison, which is another magical surrealism book that I read a few years ago for HIKEATHON, and I didn't wind up loving that one either. The magic is very, very minimal. Like, I didn't even get to the magic portion in this, and I just decided to move on to other things. It's not a bad book, I just wasn't in the mood for it, and it kind of wasn't what I was wanting. Alright, then I listened to The Perfect Escape by Suzanne Park. I was very excited when I found this one at Dollar Tree. I even sent a copy to my friend. This is a YA romance about 2 kids that work in a survival themed escape room, and they team up to do a wilderness survival competition. They each have their different reasons for wanting to enter to win the prize money, and I was really excited for it. I did not know the competition was zombie themed, which was cool, but this one had such a small amount of the wilderness competition element of it. I felt like that shouldn't have been so heavily in the synopsis because it was barely in here. It was mostly about the background and the characters and their romance. Not a big contemporary lover, so I really need a different element to kind of push the story along. It felt a little bit flat for me. It also felt on the young side of YA, so the way the characters were like talking to each other, and it was really heavily insta-love. So obviously I'm not the target audience for a lot of these books, but this one just didn't do much for me. So about a 2.5 star. All right, next up we have Out of Breath. I was excited for this one as well because I loved the cover. And this is about a girl that is kind of on the run and hiding from something that's happening in her life. She's homeless. She goes to this like town where her mother grew up. She finds a job, starts training for this like running competition. She's really into running and hiking, and they're like in this wilderness area. And then there's something mysterious about this town, something paranormal and supernatural that she kind of uncovers. This is a very short book. I really enjoyed it. I think I'll enjoy the second one more, would be my guess. It's just a quick fun read, and I liked the vibes of the small town and the wilderness and the running and all of that, so I think this one was about a 3 star for me. Then I read Small Game by Blair Braverman. This one was introduced to me towards the very end of HIKEATHON. One of my other friends was reading it, so I decided to get a copy on audio from the library and join in. So this one has amazing wilderness nature vibes. It's set, our characters are entering a wilderness reality competition, and of course something goes wrong, which is a new trope that I love. I loved the vibes for this between the reality show and the wilderness, and they're surviving, and the descriptions were so good. And I found out that the author of this book was on Naked and Afraid, so that's probably why the atmosphere was so great. About the midway point through this, the book takes a little bit of a turn, and it focuses more on a romance that's happening and less on the element that goes wrong with the reality show, and it really leaves things kind of open-ended as to what actually happened, and it just wasn't fully satisfying. I'd still recommend it if you love good wilderness vibes, but I wanted a little bit more from it, and it felt a little bit slow there in the middle. So again, another 3 star. Then I finally read Children of Eden by Joey Graceffa. So I've had this on my HIKEATHON TBR for at least 2 years. A dystopian survival read where in the future there is a small population of humanity that's like under this dome as a way to keep us protected from the polluted outside world. And because of this, you are only allowed to have 1 child per family, and our main character is a forbidden second child that has to stay hidden. Her eyes give her away because she has these special colored eyes, so she can't go out of the house. She has to live vicariously through her brother going to school and stay hidden, and then one day she has to kind of go on her own and survive out in the world. I enjoyed this. I thought it was fun, but also kind of similar to a lot of other dystopians that I've read. So it just didn't do anything extra for me, but it was still really enjoyable. So if you like dystopians, I would recommend it. But this was about a 3.5 star. Then we have Highly Suspicious and Unfairly Cute, which was similar to The Perfect Escape. So in this one, we have two characters that are ex-best friends, and you're kind of uncovering why they're ex-best friends. It's kind of like a hate to love, frenemies to lovers romance. It's young adult, and they also have to enter a wilderness survival competition and are forced together to work together as a team and things like that to get through the competition. Again, with this one, the competition portion was very minimal, and I wish that there was more of it in there, as that's kind of what the cover and the premise implies. But I did like the romance, and I did like the banter between the characters, and overall this one was just written better and a little bit more fun. So I wound up giving this one a 3.5 star. And the narrators were fantastic as well. Then I listened to Nerve on audio. I believe this is the only one I did for a book with a game, other than if you count the competition ones. That's specifically why I read this, besides the fact that it has a movie that I wanted to watch, but I haven't watched it yet. Basically in the modern world, but we have this app that has been created that will give you dares, and people will do these dares and film them, and they can get followers and fans like any other social platform. And if they get enough of those, then the platform itself will start giving them prizes, and they can be on like an actual, almost like a show. And so our main character is kind of a behind the scenes person. She works behind the scenes in a theater group, has a crush on a boy, and she decides to do a dare one day and winds up jumping into this whole thing. So this one was really fun. It was very fast paced. Our main character is very naive, so I do want to point that out. This is a young adult book. It definitely felt somewhat realistic though, because I felt like this is something that people would definitely do now and like jump in and like not know what they were doing. But I will say that the character being naive didn't personally bother me, but I didn't love most of the male characters, even the love interest. So that wasn't my favorite, but I still recommend this. It was really fast paced. It was really fun. It was quick to get through. So this was a good one. And on audio, I did House at the Bottom of the Lake by Josh Malerman. This is a short adult novella by the author of The Bird Box. So I'd heard good things about this one. So this is about two teens that spend the summer visiting the lakes on one of the characters' uncle's properties. And at one of the lakes doesn't get visited very much. They find a house at the bottom of the lake, and they decide that they want to explore it. And I don't want to say too much more because it's supposed to be kind of blind going in, but the atmosphere in this one is so good. It's about two teenagers, but this is definitely an adult novella. And I thought the ending was really good. Sometimes they leave these types of books too open-ended, but I thought that this one was pretty well done. So I gave this one 4 stars. Then I read Daisy Darker by Alice Feeney. I did a whole Alice Feeney journey earlier this year. I have now read all of her books to this date. Rock, Paper, Scissors was originally my favorite book of the year before I read some other things for this readathon. And I really wanted to love another one of her thrillers, but I just didn't like the plot or the way things went with a lot of them. But I decided to try this one because it is set on an island at this mansion where this whole family gets together for their grandmother's birthday. And when the tide comes in, they get cut off from humanity for 8 hours, and people start dying on the hour, and you have to kind of solve the mystery. It's kind of a retelling of And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie, which I haven't read before, and I really enjoyed this one. I really like Alice Feeney's writing style, even in the books that I don't enjoy. I thought this one was pretty good. It was just a tiny bit on the slow side and dove just a tiny bit too much into the backstory of the characters. It was one of my only complaints, but the twist at the end was very good and very different than her other books and different than what I was expecting. So I wound up giving this one, I think I'm settling on a 4 star. And our narrator, Stephanie Rancine, does all of Alice's books, and they are so good. She does such a fantastic job narrating. Also with Daisy Darker, something I really enjoyed is it was set on Halloween, which I didn't know, or I would have read this during Halloween time, so that's good to keep in mind. And there were a lot of mentions about Halloween, and her grandmother was also very obsessed with Halloween, and she would talk about the food that they would eat because her grandmother was insistent that everything that they eat on Halloween, which was also her grandmother's birthday, be sweet. So she would talk about how they would have like a limoncello Alfredo and like all these different types of like sweet savory foods, and they sounded so good and I wanted to make them all. So that was an atmosphere that I really liked. Then I read The Reckless Girls by Rachel Hawkins. Sorry, this is a library copy and I have a little bit of a sticker residue on here. So this is another island survival type thriller, And this one has a unique premise. This is an adult thriller, but has a little bit more of a YA vibe about it. Our characters are in their early 20s, so probably like a new adult vibe. So in this one, you have our main character, and she is spending the summer, I believe, in Hawaii with her boyfriend. He has a ship, and he like uses the ship to like take tourist places and makes money that way. And they're trying to save up to do something together, I believe. And wind up picking these two random girls up to go to this island that's kind of off the map and go check it out and like spend a couple weeks there. And then when they get to the island, things get kind of crazy with mysteries and things like that. I really love the atmosphere in this one. I thought it was very fun. It was very fast paced and easy to follow. It didn't dive too much into the characters' backstories, but just enough. I don't like when we get too much of the backstory of the characters and enough about what's actually happening in current day. So I did really enjoy this one. One of my more favorite survival thriller type reads, and I gave this one 4 stars. Next up, I physically read Grey Wolf Island by Tracy Nethercott. So I buddy read this one with a friend. This is the second book that I physically read, and I've been wanting to physically read this for a while, and I so enjoyed it. So in this one, we're following our main character who has just recently lost her sister, and they're in Maine, and there is this island called Grey Wolf Island that has this rumor to be home to treasure. And her sister that passed away was very obsessed with finding the treasure and finding the clues to the treasure and studying about the treasure, and she never got to do it because she passed away. So our main character decides that she is going to go hunt for treasure and do this for her sister. She winds up connecting with a group of ragtag character teens. They all have different like mysterious things that you're learning about them in their past. And this has a very whimsical writing style about it. It's been a long time since I read the first Raven Boys book, but I almost want to put it somewhat similar to that with the way that the characters are connecting. You are getting a lot about their past, and sometimes it can get fairly dark even though it's YA. I do want you to keep that in mind. That's not always my favorite thing, and it has some sad parts to it, and it is about grief, but it's also about finding treasure and being on an island and making friends and growing up. And overall, I really enjoyed this. I settled on a 4-star, but my friend Marie that read it gave it 5 stars, and it's one of her new favorite books of all time. So I definitely think this is worth checking out. Hope you guys are hanging in there. There's a lot of books to get through, but we're rounding the corner with the best ones. Listen to Warrior of the Wild by Trisha Levenseller. I love Trisha Levenseller's Daughter of the Pirate King. I recently read The Shadows Between Us, and now with this book I'm confirming that she is a favorite author. I've only got 2 more books to read from her that are part of a duology, and I'm really looking forward to it. All of her main characters are very strong-headed, very opinionated, very feisty. Her romances are very snarky and bantery and fun. So in this one, we've got kind of like a Viking situation, but I don't know if it ever confirms that they're Viking. Our main character on her like trial day winds up failing her trial and being banished to the woods, and the only way that she can come back is to like kill a monster and prove that she's killed this monster, and no female has ever done that before. And the monster's kind of considered like a god, and she winds up meeting up with a couple other people out in the woods, and they have to like survive and find the god and all that kind of stuff. So really cute. I love the friendships in here. I loved the romance. I loved the ending. I thought it was really good. I gave it 4 stars just because the beginning was a little bit tough to follow and get into because you're learning all about the world and everything, and it's very fast paced. But I so enjoyed this one, and I'll be recommending it a lot. And this is such a good like nature but still fantasy oriented book. So loved it. Our narrator was also super awesome. Then I physically read The Islands at the End of the World by Austin Aslan. This is the first book I physically read. I've been wanting to read it for at least 2 hikeathons now. So this is set in Hawaii, and there's like a apocalypse type situation with these tsunamis and earthquakes and things, and our main character lives in Hawaii, but she has traveled to a different island to do some testing for her seizures because she has epilepsy, and travels to a different island with her dad to go have tests done for her epilepsy so that she can get some new medication and hopefully do better. Loves surfing and being in nature, but they always worry about her because of her seizures. So that part, her having epilepsy, was so unique, especially in a survival situation. So while they're on this other island, this apocalypse type thing happens, and they're having to survive and try to make it home to their island. And the world just goes in chaos. And you're trying to figure out whether it's just a natural disaster, whether there's some other element at play, like magical element or something else. And the way that this one ended was so good. I will say this is very brutal. It's very intense. They have to like fight for their lives, like with people and animals, and it gets very, very like fast-paced and dark. This is considered young adult, but this is one of the more brutal survival reads that I've read. Nothing like too crazy, but I do want to warn people that it gets really, really intense. Like I could not put this down. So I have the second book because it's a duology and I haven't found out the whole story yet, so I can't wait to read it, but this was a 5-star for me. Next 5-star, I listened to Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies by Heather Fawcett. My copy of this is on the way. I ordered it as soon as I finished reading it. This one I'm sure you've seen floating around YouTube and Instagram. It is so good. I believe this one is considered adult, but it might be YA, I'm not entirely sure. So in this one we have like a fussy professor that goes to this small town to study fairies and different types of fae and uncover things that people have not uncovered before, all from like little types of fae to like human-sized fae. This is just like a cozy fantasy. It is so good. It is so fun. So the only thing I'll tell you is that we are learning about this in encyclopedia form while she's like writing out her journal. So we're getting journal entries while things are happening. You're also getting stories from the fae from different areas and back in the past. I know some people do not like that journal format or the jumping around, but I thought it was so good. The romance in here is so cute. Main love interest, I call him a new book boyfriend because he was so precious and I enjoyed it so much. It was so funny. I laughed out loud a couple times while listening. The narrator is so good. It has a little bit of like a Bridgerton, Jane Eyre, Pride and Prejudice, almost stuffiness about it in like such a fun way that I really enjoyed. And I found out that it was going to be a series, so I cannot wait for book 2 now. I'm so excited. I had so much fun reading this, so make sure to watch those vlogs because you can see me just gushing over this book. I thought this was going to be my favorite read of the readathon, but wound up being second place, and you'll see why in a second. So, solid 5 stars. All right, my favorite book of the readathon was This Vicious Grace by Emily Thied. This is the Fairy Loot edition if you don't recognize it. I had a friend send me this copy because she got the Fairy Loot edition. It was slightly damaged and so they were sending her a new one and she had two. I really didn't know anything about it and I wasn't like overly interested in it, but then one of my friends read it and it's like her new favorite book ever and we have very similar reading tastes, so I was like, okay, I'll add that to HIKEATHON because it sounded like it would have some good similar vibes and I needed an elemental magic book and this one has some of that in there. Again, we're set on an island. I believe it's in Italy or it's supposed to be reminiscent of Italy, and our main character is called a Fenestra. They are chosen by the people for their ability to enhance a partner's magical powers, and they're basically designated as kind of like a goddess type character to protect the island from these like demon creatures that come in and try to harm the town. And so she's trying to find her partner so that they can work together to solve this problem, but every time she marries someone, instead of enhancing their powers, she winds up killing them and she's 3 suitors down. Island's starting to turn against her, so she hires this random snarky bodyguard to protect her while she's still trying to find her suitor. It is so good. I loved it so much. There are so many fun characters in here. The romance is precious and swoon-worthy, but it's very clean, but it is still so much fun. Main love interest in here is also my new book boyfriend because I loved him so much. I really enjoyed the ending. I cannot wait for the second book that's coming out in December. I'll probably reread this before it comes out because I enjoyed it so much. I'm so excited that I'm loving some of these newer releases because I felt like the last couple years I wasn't loving as many, but this might be my new favorite book of the year. I'm not sure. 5 stars, so good. It was such a good fantasy and had such wonderful world building and descriptions, but it also wasn't like hard to follow, which sometimes happens with our fantasy reads. We also get a lot about like Italian food and things that they're making, and I loved that. I thought that was really fun. So absolutely loved. Okay, you guys, so that is everything that I read for HIKEATHON. I had such a great time. If you hung in till the end, put a lemon emoji down below in the comments so I know that you hung in with me. Let me know if you read any of these books or if you plan to in the future. Let me know if you participated in HIKEATHON in any way. I'd love to chat about it with you. Stay tuned for my Mermaid Marathon announcement, which will come out in just a day or two. I'm very excited for that one as well. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram at The Bright Side Girl, and I will see you guys next time on The Bright Side.